So is a fiscal deal more likely now than it was before Congress left for Christmas break? Let's have a meeting of the minds now. Deneen Borelli, she's outreach director for Freedom Works, the author of Backlash and a Fox News contributor, and Michael Meehan, former senior communications advisor to John Kerry's presidential campaign and CEO of Venn Squared Communications. Long intros, appropriately for both of you hardworking people.
Thank you.
All righty, I'm going with you first on this one, Deneen. So President Obama says that he's modestly optimistic. So I ask you if there's going to be a deal tomorrow, and if so, will it be temporary just to get us into next year? And if that's the case, how is this going to go over with the public?
Well, there probably will be. I think some of the Republicans are going to cave, but in my view, I think the Republicans should stand their ground because no deal would be better than a bad deal. And it makes absolutely no sense for politicians who should be representing the will of the American people to put this patchwork of a bill together, which will not be good in the best interest of Americans. Clearly, I don't want taxes to go up. Taxes shouldn't go up on anyone. But to only raise taxes on those who are the top earners will only fund the government something like 8 days. This is something that the American people need to understand and recognize. There are big failures that are going on in Washington, and people need to take notice and hold our politicians accountable.
Michael, how do you see it?
Well, if she's right and it's only 8 days, why would the Republicans hold every American taxpayer hostage for 8 days worth of a deal? There should be a deal on the tax part. It should happen in the next few hours. This was an artificial deadline created by a bunch of politicians 2 summers ago because they couldn't come to an agreement, and so that's why we're here on the New Year's Eve trying to figure out how not to have taxes go up on 99.7% of Americans, which is what will happen come New Year's Day. And so that's why I think you're going to get it. I don't think politicians want to be the person that says, "Oh yeah, I'm the person that created the largest tax hike in history." So I think you will get a deal.
So Michael, how would you see what would the most beneficial package look like to you? And will the lawmakers even get to the debt ceiling and spending cuts, or are they just going to address tax hikes and unemployment benefits?
Yeah, I think the tax hikes and the unemployment benefits are at the top of the table. You have the ATM, which is also on the table for 30 million Americans. I think that probably gets settled because there's enough consensus in the middle. I think Senator Reid's amazing at getting Republican votes on things when he needs to get it, and this is one of the times where he's going to need to get it because Speaker Boehner will not be able to pass anything with a majority of his caucus, as he proved last week. But I think there'll be enough pressure not to be the one going over the cliff. Because if they wait to go over the cliff, there'll be more Democratic votes in the Senate, there'll be more Democratic votes in the House, and they could quickly get to fixing the tax problem, you know, a day or two after the new Congress is sworn in on Thursday the 3rd.
Hey, and so Deneen, as Michael just alluded to, the wheeling and dealing, of course, we know what's going on both sides of the aisle, but there's also that intra-party negotiations that's happening. So what would you see are the deal breakers inside the Democratic Party as well as inside the GOP party?
Well, listen, I really think that they should look at this and look at the fact that when you raise taxes, people have less money to spend. You're harming the middle class, the class that Obama is claiming that he wants to help. How about a flat tax? How about some real reform in government? And again, this is a wake-up call for all Americans. People need to pay attention because if your taxes go up, you need to get in front of your representative and let them know you are not happy about the decisions being made in Washington. And it really shouldn't come down to this last-minute nonsense a day or two where there's this deadline. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, but you're right. That is ridiculous. And so that's, to me, is more vexing for the public than them coming up with any kind of deal, if it's going to be temporary or not. They're like, get over yourselves. Do something, Congress. Michael, what do you say?
Yeah.
Well, I agree with you. You know, the Congress created this artificial deadline. No one else in the world says it had to be solved by today, except they punted a problem from a year and a half ago. But an election's happened. President Obama is the first Democrat in 75 years to win with more than 50% of the vote, and he said $250,000 was his bar. Elections have consequences, and so that's a legitimate place to be. Now, everybody that got elected to the House of Representatives just got elected too, and they have a no new tax pledge, so you definitely are at loggerheads benefits here. But I think there's a sweet spot in the middle where nobody wants to be the person to raise the taxes that we just talked about and have a big bill come across your table in January.
Yeah, but what's that sweet spot?
I really think, though, the problem is spending. We have a spending problem in our country. And look at our debt. Our debt is over $16 trillion. Our government is spending way too much money. We need to cut back on spending, cut cap and balance.
Where, Deneen?
Look at the entitlement programs, for example. There's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse that is going on there. That is not even on the table. And so, listen, we can cut our expenses in our country. That is very meaningful and very important for us to do, because right now they're just kicking the can down the road, and it's not going to help our economy.
Waste, fraud, and abuse where, Deneen? Because, you know, when the regular folks at home hear cutting my entitlements, you know, you're looking at the older people who are looking at their Medicare or Medicaid benefits being affected.
Well, there is a significant amount of waste, fraud, and abuse going on in Medicaid and Medicare. So that is something I think that needs to be addressed, and that's something that has not been looked at, and I think that is part of our problem.
Michael, you get the last word.
Well, I don't think you need to hold up the tax issue on the spending. The Congress has the power of the purse strings. It has the ability to make these cuts. There's no caucus out there for waste, fraud, and abuse to continue, so I don't buy that as a reality. The reality is you got to sit down, you got to make the hard choices, and the Congress has not been willing to do so, partially why they're at 18, 19% favorability. But I don't think any politician in the Congress or the president wants people's taxes to go up $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a year on average just because they can't get to a deal on this stalemate. So I think it will happen.
Michael Meehan, good to see you. And Deneen Borelli, by the way, the title of your book is
Blacklash.
Blacklash. Yes. I stand corrected, my friend.
Thank you.
It's good to see both of you.
Thanks.